Hi, thank you for joining me. So I'm here to talk to you about a very serious subject, okay? So I want to talk to you about the disaster cycle, on this planet, and how I feel and others feel that we are heading towards the end of, we're at a transition point, basically. We're at the end of a particular cycle on this planet, okay? So I've had premonitions in the form of visions, dreams, intuitions, clairaudient information that I've received information I've received clairaudiently, and so on and so forth, via ESP basically, and via remote viewing. But I'm going to go into that probably in another video. Okay, this video I really just want to introduce the subject to you. I want to introduce the issue so that you might feel inclined then to go and research it. You might want to come back then later and listen to the visions and the other things that I've experienced that might give you a better, more of a detailed picture of what more evidence and more of a sense of what what we're dealing with here. Okay, but for now I just want to introduce the subject in a gentle but informative way. Okay, so our geomagnetic field, okay, the shield that protects the Earth from solar wind, radiation and things like that, the effects of flares, is weakening, and it is decreasing at an increased rate, okay, at the moment. You can see evidence of this when you note the fact that we can now see the northern lights very often in more southern parts of the world. So relatively speaking, in Florida, for instance, southern parts of the United States have reported them, and other parts of the planet as well. This is not normal, okay? See, when I was a kid, or even up until recently, I mean, a lot of people felt they had to go to Iceland to see the northern lights, or they had to go to the Arctic Circle somewhere, or Alaska or somewhere like that. Now you can see the northern lights. You don't have to leave your home and you can see the northern lights, and that's not normal. Okay, don't get me wrong, they are beautiful. Northern lights are amazing, they're gorgeous. I've seen them myself. I mean, when 2015 I was studying astronomy, and I didn't finish the degree, but I was an astronomy student at that time, and we went up to the Brecon Beacons in Wales, and we saw the northern lights basically, and that was nobody was expecting that, and it was a very rare event to have happened at that time, and so rare that it was actually put in the newspaper. But this is the northern lights now. Seeing the northern lights has become quite commonplace, quite commonplace now. And don't get me wrong, it's still a beautiful event, and people still are drawn to it and don't take it for granted, but it is a sign that something is happening to our field, okay? And it's a warning, a beautiful warning, okay? So in tandem with that weakening, okay, what we are also seeing is the geomagnetic excursion of our poles. And so what that means is that our magnetic poles are drifting, and this is set to potentially increase as well, okay? This will lead up to a very probable pole shift at some point in the next couple of decades, possibly, okay? Now, and this was shown as being a necessary, like a cycle in itself, that a necessary one to restore the strength of the magnetic field. Nuno Loureiro, who was an MIT professor who was murdered a few weeks ago, he found that, basically the poles wander and flip to enable that restoration of the magnetic field after its deterioration. So it's part of a cycle, okay? So yes, so we're facing a pole shift, okay? Now, what obviously the other thing that makes us vulnerable as a result of this decline in our magnetic field is a Carrington event. We are more vulnerable to radiation. We're more vulnerable to the effects of solar flares. But yes, we are. If a micronova or Carrington event was to happen, and our fields had declined to a sufficient enough, rate that we were so vulnerable, it could cause incredible damage to our infrastructure, to our climate, and it could induce earthquakes, seismic activity, volcanic activity, tsunamis, blackouts, GPS failure, navigation failure. And this isn't just this isn't me just referring to disaster movies. Again, I've seen this in visions and dreams and information I've received intuitively, but also this is documented in a Pentagon report. Some of what I've said is documented in a Pentagon report that was released, I think, in the last decade, but I think it was about 10 years ago, by, I think it's Tyler J. Williams, but please look that report up. I'll try and put the link to that in the description box. But it's a documented concern that this is going to happen by the United States government. They are well aware of these disaster cycles, as are the network of people who are trying to suppress this information or manage how this information is revealed to the public. Okay, these are people that I've had, and many, basically they've been a part of my life for the past several months at least. And so, but that's, I'll go into that in the next video. But there are people who know that this is a real issue. This is very serious, okay? This is something that we have to reckon with. We've built up our world around technology. We've built up our world around GPS technology. Our infrastructure is vulnerable, okay? But it's more than that. Our climate as well. Radiation has a huge effect. Solar wind, the sun has a massive effect on our weather, okay? We saw that. And that in fact will increase as our field declines, okay, and our climate is vulnerable to rapid change as a result, okay. With the increased radiation and that vulnerability, for instance, a couple of weeks ago when we had that big solar storm. And there was we had there was a huge snowstorm, then a huge I think it was a huge winter storm in the United States. That's not a coincidence, okay? That's not a coincidence. Things like that will become more common, or possibly could become more common and possibly more severe as time goes on, okay? We are very probably heading towards, again, more frequent events of that nature, more extreme weather, more changes on the planet that are going to be so unavoidable at some point that people are going to start noticing that something is very wrong, okay? All right? It's very, again, I'm basing this on science and also my visions and intuitions. Those things, I have been given more specifics in that regard that I'm going to go into the next video, but the idea here is to introduce the subject to you so you feel that you feel inclined to perhaps go and do your own research, and also maybe have gentle conversations introducing the subject with your family and friends, okay, because this is a really serious issue, okay, not something to be ignored. Okay, again, there are people out there who know exactly what I'm talking about and they are suppressing it, okay, and trying to manage how that information is distributed and when. The other thing of concern here is the Atlantic Meridional overturning circulation, which is a huge oceanic current in the Atlantic Ocean. We are very, very vulnerable, and I think all these events are interlinked, okay? We are very vulnerable to its decline, especially in Europe and the United Kingdom, but the whole planet would be affected if this happened, obviously. And it has been shown that it's feared that there will be a decline that occurs in the next century with regards to AMOC. But the study released a couple of weeks ago, I think it was in Nature Communications, a study that was released, and I'll try and link that as well for you. said that there's evidence to show that the water is aging, okay, in the ocean, okay, and so aging water is indicating a slowing of the current, slowing of the circulation, and with the slowing of the circulation, we are, it's showing a potential decline that's already occurring. We don't know, obviously we can't say that is 100% what's happening at the moment, but it is still predicted that, at least certainly, if not in the next few decades, but by the turn of the next century, the AMOC will decline, okay? With that will bring much colder temperatures to Europe. It will make it difficult for us to grow food. It'll make a lot of places uninhabitable, I think, as well, unfortunately. It's going to be, but the problem is that with increased radiation on the planet and all the effects of a weakening magnetic field and so on and so forth, we are more vulnerable to ice sheets melting and all these other things, and a destabilization of these currents because of that, okay? So it's all happening in tandem, okay, in that sense. They're all interlinked. These events are all interlinked with each other. They have a knock-on effect on each other, okay? So it's all important. A report by our intelligence chiefs in the United Kingdom about the effects of climate change was suppressed last year by our government. This is partly why, as per reports, that I read online, and this is part of the reason why I'm concerned as well, not just because my own experiences have shown dramatically in my personal life that the lengths people go to control how this information is talked about and released, okay? But yes, so a report was squashed, okay, suppressed by our government regarding the effects of climate change, okay? So I believe that there is possibly a bit of suppression, I think there is a lot of hesitation about raising this discussion with the public, okay? And I can understand why, because it is a very serious matter, and people don't want to panic people. I feel awful talking about this with people because it's people's lives that are at stake here. It's not easy discussing it. I feel sick talking about it, thinking about it sometimes. There's a lot of, but now is the time to start talking about this, okay? Frankly, give people the chance, give them the information, tell them what let's work together to find solutions. Let's be honest with each other about the way that things are going. Let's talk about it. Trust people. Let's trust each other again. This matter is linked directly with the issue of UAP and other things that have been suppressed over the years. So, the issue of, so if you don't know, non-human intelligence, UAP, UFOs, whatever you want to call it, it's all interlinked, okay? Very much so. And this is, again, something that I'll probably go into in the next video, but you can't have one, without unraveling the other, okay? One form of disclosure without unraveling the other, because the reality of non-human intelligence and other things are non-physical nature, consciousness, reality, the disaster cycles, all that information, so all those things are interlinked with each other and are sort of familiars to each other. So, they are, again, all of this is linked to the nature of our reality. This experience, this transition, this cycle, they are all linked to an understanding, a potential understanding for people, or not potential, an understanding, because I've had a lot of experiences of remembering about our nature and other things about reality over the last few weeks. It's all linked to the nature of reality, okay? Our intelligence services and the military, aspects of the military are very engaged with this, okay? You don't need to even dig that far before you start finding out that's true. A lot of people dismiss the idea of ESP. A lot of people dismiss the idea of, not UAP and NHI. They are real, okay? They're real, okay? But the issue of disclosure, UAP disclosure, is inextricably linked with this issue and other matters that have been suppressed, like I said, because they all form part of a larger study of reality, okay? The understanding of reality that has been suppressed or managed, kept away from the rest of the population, okay? And there's a lot of other interests in that as well, okay? A lot of other reasons. It's more, I make it sound more simple than it is, but there are a lot of reasons, okay, for why this is so. So we need to encourage these people to share what they know. These people are under immense pressure, okay? They are human beings just like us. Let's stop looking at people just because they have a certain job title. I think we need to move beyond the idea that people should have stones lobbed at them just because they work in a certain profession, okay? They're human beings on a journey just like us, learning, making mistakes just like us, vulnerable, traumatized, and maybe in different ways as well, having to deal with enormous pressures, often working, being under surveillance themselves, and there's a larger reality to this, again, with regards to non-human intelligence, their involvement as well, and also a broader metaphysical framework that this falls into too, okay? So all of this is linked to, again, the nature of reality. So okay, it's all interlinked, okay? So let's encourage disclosure of all. Well, let's not encourage, we need full transparency on all these things, okay? Now, okay, if we can't get disclosure about these matters and in facing these circumstances, we won't be able to get disclosure. I mean, I can't imagine how we would get disclosure about anything else, in any other circumstances, okay? I can't see how we would be, if we can't come together around these issues, around life or death issues such as these changes on the planet, there's not much more that we can get around the table to discuss. And I don't believe that these people are horrible in the sense that they want millions of people to die. I just think it's a really tough conversation to have with people. And so please, look into it, okay? Speak to your government, send them letters, send them emails, phone them up. I don't know, what you have available to you in that sense. Phone up your representatives or MPs or whoever serves your locality or region. Ask them to lobby the government, ask them to ask questions about what intelligence they have regarding these potential cataclysms. Ask them for full transparency and disclosure. Ask them to give demand transparency, okay? Again, we're talking about life or death here. We're talking about millions of lives, millions and millions and millions of lives that will be affected by this. The whole world will be affected by this at some point, okay? I think, we're going in that direction, okay? And again, it's not, hopefully, touch wood, this doesn't happen. Okay, I pray this doesn't happen to us, but we are facing a very difficult time on this planet if things being as they are, okay, and heading in the direction that they are. So please contact them, ask them what they know, ask them about their preparedness. What contingency plans do you have? What exactly, do you have a plan? What's the plan? What is the plan? And if they don't have the plan, that's fine, okay? Let's move on quickly. I think a big thing for us right now is to be able to move on quickly, okay? Let's move on quickly. Let's move on quickly from that. So if they say they don't have a plan, let's not make it into a big investigation, okay? Let's move on quickly and just be like, okay, so you don't have a plan. Okay, let's work on a plan together. Let's do it. Let's not get stuck in, who did what and blaming. Let's just move on quickly and find solutions, okay? Because this is not the time to get stuck into, years worth of investigation. It's just not the time, okay? We need to start putting things, we need to, if we can, I'm not saying need to, there's no obligation. This is a suggestion for how we can really move on, move things along in a way that really will probably be more useful to us in the long term and more compassionate and more you know, what we actually truly need right now, which is not more finger pointing. Okay, so yes, we need that information to be disclosed. We need to know what have you organised, what have you done, what's your plan. Before I move on, and actually just came to mind, and this might be useful for you to know, another reason why, another display of why the UAP issue is linked to this, as well as from my first-hand experience, because I know it is, because my insights have come from a lot of, a lot of my insights have come from non-human intelligence, okay, directly, and also from these people who I know who are involved with this. But there is a UAP whistleblower called Lou Elizondo, and he worked for the Pentagon. And he has spoken about how he has built a bunker at a very high altitude, you know, and I think possibly in Colorado, somewhere like that, high elevation. And he has said that there is an event, you know, that he is aware of, that, you know, that there's intelligence about, or there's worry about, concern about, that that has meant that he feels that has felt the need to build a bunker, okay, to escape. My feeling is a potential tsunami or flood, okay, given again my visions and experiences with that. But he was asked to talk more about it, and he said he didn't feel like it was his place to do that. That was not his place to have that conversation with people. But he also said there will come a time, or possibly come a time, I can't remember if he said that, where we will wish we had done more, okay? So again, he's a UAP whistleblower, he worked for the Pentagon, he's built a bunker, he's so concerned he built a bunker, again, you know, and again, the evidence is pointing towards something happening, okay? So get in contact with your governments, get in contact with the people who represent you in your locality, your region, your state, wherever you are in the world, and ask questions, demand transparency, have gentle conversations again with the people that you know. Maybe if you feel like it's going to be too triggering for them, just use your, you know, be judicious about that, you know. But to be honest with you, I think we need to be realistic and practical about this also. You know, we need to be honest with people, we need to trust each other again, okay? So let's do it. You know, let's start talking about this. Okay, let's start now, because I just do, you know, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, we don't have a lot of time. Okay, we have years, we have a few years, we have maybe at the most about 50, you know, basically within the next couple of decades things will start changing, okay? You know, we're looking at the 2030s, 2040s especially, okay? But again, this could happen at any time. You know, I'm not, you know, when I say any time, obviously I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow necessarily, but those are just things that I've been shown, okay? But again, the point is, okay, we need to start talking about it now, okay, like now, so that you know, by the time we get answers, by the time things start moving, by the time the cogs start turning, by the time, you know, we have conversations about how we can prepare and fortify things, and how we can you know, how what moves we can make and things like that, you know, by the time all that happens, you know, things may have started, you know, if we delay this conversation any longer, there may come a point where we can't do anything, because things have accelerated to the point where we are our infrastructure's deteriorated, or something's happened that's quite, you know, devastating. So we don't know when that tipping point will be, okay? So it's important to have these conversations now to prepare people. In the next video, I will be talking more about the visions, the premonitions, the information that I've been given, seen, you know, via ESP, okay? I'll be talking more about my background, my experiences, things that have built up, because there's a whole story behind this. It's not about me. It's not about me. What I want you to look at more, if you do tune in, is more about the what it's telling you about this situation, okay? That's more, I want you to just focus more on what it's telling you in the context of this, about this situation. Okay, if you want to tune into my podcast on Spotify, I have recorded episodes about all this. There's a lot more information on there if you want to look into that, okay, as well as the NHI, how NHI fit into this whole thing, the last episode. And that came after quite a significant moment of epiphany where a lot of things seem to come together. Okay, so please tune into that if you want to get more information. In the meantime, I'll put links in the description box for some of the things that I've mentioned, like the Pentagon report, and also Ben Davidson's website, and he's got a YouTube channel as well, Space Weather News. Also Stefan Burns, he's fantastic. But yes, there is, if you start digging around, you'll find information. Okay, but please get in touch with people in the meantime if you feel so inclined, and thank you for watching. Take care.